So thank you, dear Cody. Um, Maybe before I introduce myself, I'll invite the sound of the bell 3 times, and we can just allow the sound of the bell to wash over our bodies and minds. And we can view the sound of the bell as a friend reminding us to come back to our breath and to come back to our true homes. Listen, listen. This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. So thank you, dear friends. Welcome to this evening's workshop, uh, understanding our inner community through the practice of deep listening and Dharma sharing. This evening's workshop is organized by Rainbodhi Canada. So Rainbodhi is an international, non-denominational Buddhist organization started by a wonderful monastic named Bhante Akaliko. He is based out of Australia. And this is an organization to support queer and trans Buddhist practitioners from all the different traditions and creating an inclusive and safe space for us to explore the Dharma together and to build Sangha and community within ourselves and within our respective communities. So myself, my name is Pablo Seto. I practice in the Plum village tradition, started by Venerable Master Thich Nhat Hanh. He was a peace activist during the Vietnam-American War. And really, in the midst of deep suffering and deep difficulties, he helped to modernize the essence, the practice of Buddhism, and bringing it into daily life. So really empowering ourselves to have the capacity to nourish our suffering, to take care of our suffering, and as well as to nourish our joys, to really give us the mindful energy and this ability to help understanding, compassion grow in a world with difficulties and suffering. So I've been practicing in this tradition since 2017, and I am a facilitator in my local Plum Village Wake Up Sangha in Toronto, and as well, I'm also an ordained member in our Order of Interbeing. So for this evening's workshop, it'll be broken out into 3 parts. I will start off with a guided meditation to get in touch with our inner Sangha, our inner community. And this meditation is inspired by the practice of internal family systems and also the Sutra on the Four Establishments of Mindfulness. And don't worry if you're not familiar with these two modalities and with the Sutta or Sutra, I will be guiding us through this evening's practice. So there's no need to come with any expectations or any experience in these modalities. So after the guided sit, I will guide us through an activity to help us to map out our internal families, our internal sanghas, our internal communities. And then after that, we'll have an opportunity to share what sort of insights have manifested uh, for us as we've gone through this evening's practice. So with that, I invite you to find a comfortable position, whether seated, standing, or lying down for this guided meditation. And just bear in mind that any guidance that I give is an invitation. And so it's important for you to feel safe in your bodies. So if you find that some of my guidance may trigger you, um, you may find some difficulty arise, you're more than welcome to mute me. I won't be offended. You could turn your camera on and off, whatever helps you to feel stable and solid and comfortable during this guided meditation. And as well, as we're going through this meditation, it is okay for your mind to wander. And it is also okay for difficult emotions to manifest. Sometimes we think meditation is about finding calm or peace. But if we are attached to that idea, that can be a very unskillful or violent practice to oneself. Really, the practice of meditation isn't about forcing us to attain a particular state. It's not about attaining nirvana, but really it's an invitation for us to check in, to see what is alive for us in this present moment, and to really understand and get in touch with what our bodies and hearts and minds really need. And so if you fall asleep during the meditation, that is perfectly fine too, because that just means that in this moment, your body needed to feel safe and needed to rest. So falling asleep is perfectly fine too. With that, I will invite the sound of the bell 3 times to start this evening's guided meditation. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of this bell. May the hearers of this sound awaken from forgetfulness to transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow. So as we get settled into this space, I invite you to notice the quality of your breath. Is it fast or slow? Is it deep or shallow? We don't force our breath to be in any particular state or way. We allow it to be as it is. This is a practice of nonviolence and accepting our breath wherever it is at. So as you breathe in, you may like to say the word in, and as you breathe out, you may like to say the word out. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. In, out. As we get settled into our breath, I now invite you to notice your body. Sometimes when we get caught up in daily life, in rushing and projects, or work, or school, or entertainment, we sometimes forget that we have a body. So I invite you to notice the parts of your body that are doing well. We can say hello to our heart, which sends its love unconditionally to us in every moment. It beats in every moment so that there's fresh blood and oxygen to nourish the cells of our bodies. Maybe we can thank our lungs for helping us to breathe in fresh oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. Our lungs help us to stay alive and to get in touch with our breath in the present moment. We can also acknowledge the joy of not having a toothache. Sometimes it's easy to forget that where there is no pain and a neutral sensation, that already is a moment of happiness. So maybe we can be grateful for the ability to chew our food without a toothache. Maybe we can acknowledge our eyes and our ears that allow us to see and hear many different beautiful shapes and sounds. And if there's other parts of your body that feel tense or in pain, we can also say hello to those parts of our bodies and let them know that we're there for them and that there are other parts of the body supporting them. We have a whole inner community in our own body. Ears, eyes, nose, mouth, tongue, lungs, heart, liver, kidney, bladder, intestines, limbs, skeletons, they all work together to allow us to touch the magic of life. Breathing in, I say hello to my entire body. Breathing out, I send my gratitude and love to my whole body. In, hello, dear body. Out, thank you, dear body. I now invite you to notice what sort of feelings have been arising in the garden of your mind. So we can imagine our mind as a garden filled with many different plants, many different feelings. So what sort of plants are sprouting and manifesting in your garden right now? Is there a happy hibiscus, a raging rose, a despairing daffodil, a compassionate chrysanthemum, or maybe a weeping willow? So as we observe these plants that are flowering in the garden of our mind, we can let them know that they are welcome to stay and to grow in this garden. So when we tend to a loving lettuce in our garden, we don't yell at it or judge it for growing too fast or too slow, but rather we ask ourselves, what does this loving lettuce need? What are the conditions of the soil, the water, the sun, the fertilizer? What are the conditions that this lettuce needs to be happy and nourished? So I invite you to take a stroll through the garden of your minds and welcome and tend to whatever plants are showing up there. Breathing in, I say hello to the feelings that are manifesting in the garden of my mind. Breathing out, I let them know that they are welcome here. In, hello, dear feelings. Out, you're welcome here, dear feelings. Now that we've checked in with our bodies and our feelings, I invite you to notice what sort of mental formations, what sort of guests are showing up in the living room of your consciousness. What sort of gardeners are tending to the garden of your mind right now? Do we have a Mr. Judgment there, a Ms. Impatient, a Mr. Understanding, a Miss Compassionate? Whatever guests are showing up in the living room of your mind, we can invite them for a cup of tea and let them know that they're welcome here and that they can stay as long as they need. And perhaps if we have the capacity to, we can invite them to share what their deepest aspirations and needs are. Breathing in, I say hello to the living room guests of my mind consciousness. Breathing in, breathing out, I welcome them into the living room of my mind consciousness. In, hello, dear living room guests out, you're welcome here, dear living room guests. Finally, dear friends, I invite you to observe your perceptions. So notice how you were feeling towards your body, your breath, feel the feelings, and the guests of your mind this evening. Was there a lot of spaciousness and understanding, or did you notice some resistance and aversion towards these different parts of yourself? So again, this is not a practice of violence towards oneself. This is more a practice of curiosity. The way we feel towards our body, feelings, and mind gives us an indication of where our mindfulness energy is at and how safe we are feeling. And so if there is some resistance and some aversion, there just may be a part of yourself that doesn't feel safe right now and needs more love and attention. And that's okay. Conversely, if you have a lot of spaciousness, this is a wonderful opportunity and moment to embrace your suffering and to embrace the wounded parts of yourself with love and understanding. Breathing in, I observe my perceptions towards my body, feelings, and mind. Breathing out, I acknowledge and welcome whatever perceptions I have in this present moment. In, hello, dear perceptions. Out, I notice and see you, dear perceptions. Thank you, dear friends, for sharing your mindfulness energy and your presence for that guided sit. I invite you to bring your attention back into the space as we've been sitting for a little while. So you may like to wiggle around. You may like to massage your neck and face. Um, Whatever you need to come back into this present moment. It's always lovely to be able to practice in community, in a sangha. I find being able to rest in the mindfulness energy of the sangha helps to solidify my own practice. So by having you there, you're also your breath and your mindfulness energy helps me to come back to my own breath, my own mindfulness energy. So we'll move into the second portion of this evening's practice, and this is the Dharma talk. So Dharma in Sanskrit means teaching or phenomenon. And really, this is an exploration into mindfulness practice and getting an understanding of how that practice applies to one's daily life and also how to understand oneself and maybe have some insight into our own suffering and some insight into our own happiness. So when we listen to a Dharma talk, an invitation is to imagine like the Dharma falling down on your consciousness like rain. And so there's no need to remember anything or to have an expectation or attachment to an outcome when we listen to a Dharma talk. We just allow that rain to fall and to nourish whatever needs to be nourished. So sometimes that rain may strike the right spot and a flower of insight will manifest immediately. There are some plants that are like that in the desert, and maybe others need more time. Maybe there's other seeds in your mind that need to be nourished and supported in water for a few days or maybe a few months before they're ready to spout. So, in other words, there's no need to remember everything. If you forget stuff, that's fine. Or maybe if something does flower or nourish in this moment, that's great too. Or maybe you'll notice that an insight will ripen a few months later down the road. So, today's talk is talking about getting to know our inner sangha, our inner community. So you noticed when I was doing the guided sit, it's inspired by the sutra on the Four Establishments of Mindfulness. And so that's being aware of the body in the body, the feelings in the feelings, mental formations or the mind in the mind, and perceptions in perceptions. And so really, this is a wonderful practice that the Buddha has transmitted to us over 2,500 years ago. And it's a wonderful practice to really get in touch with what is alive for us in this present moment. So sometimes when we don't know how to listen to ourselves and to acknowledge ourselves, we may have an aversion. So we may engage in activities to distract us, to run away from what is really coming up for us in our bodies. And unfortunately, the more we run away from our suffering, the more that suffering builds. So you can imagine like our suffering as a pile of poop. And so if we're not skilled at composting, right, transforming that poop continues to build and build and build. And it can seem to turn into this insurmountable Mount Everest of poop. But if we know how to tend to that and how to compost that poop, we can really turn it into nourishing fertilizer for wonderful plants like joy and happiness to grow from. So really the Four Established Mindfulness, right, is a way to help us to transform that poop, to really help tend to whatever wounds are manifesting in our bodies and minds, to really acknowledge what is there. And really, as I was going through that guided meditation, um, when we're embarking on this journey to get to know ourselves, our bodies, feelings, and mental formations, um, is not a process that we have to rush right away. Uh, Sometimes there may be a deep knot of suffering that has been sitting in our bodies for a long time. And maybe today was maybe the first time that we actually noticed it. And so we don't need to force ourselves to fix or untie that knot right away. But really, we can take our time to get to know it, really to nourish our own mindfulness energy and practice, so that when the conditions are ripe, right, that knot can untie on out of its own accord, right? That knot is only going to untie when it feels safe and understood. And so there may be some parts of ourselves that we've exiled and haven't attended to in a long, long time, maybe our whole lifetime, or maybe through lineages, right, of ancestors that have transmitted that knot to us because they themselves didn't have the right conditions to look at that knot deeply with love and understanding. And so this is a practice I do with myself every day, right? I like to check in with my body and with my feelings and my perceptions, because oftentimes um, my body and my feelings will really give me information on what needs to be tended to and taken care of. Our bodies and our feelings can oftentimes store deep trauma or deep wounds from being misunderstood or unloved in unskillful environments. And so when we come together in Sangha, when we come together to practice, and when we come to uh, practice mindfulness for oneself, right, we're developing the solidity, the tools to look deeply into those parts and to really take care of them and get to know them. So what I'm going to do actually is give you an invitation to get to know some of your parts. Um, the invitation is, if you have some pens and paper, you may like to grab those. If not, you could use your phone to write down, maybe your computer. And really what I'm going to do is invite you to get to know some of the parts that have showed up today. And so really this practice is, the invitation is, in my situation, I will use 5 different colors of pens. And then what I like to do is, with each color pen, to write free flow. And each pen can represent a different part of myself. And so there's no need to worry about writing this perfectly. You don't have to share what's coming up for you. Really, this is just an invitation to get in touch with, or to notice, or to acknowledge for the first time a part that needs to be heard. And some prompts, maybe as you're going through this exercise, is tell me your story. Tell me what you need. What is your deepest wish? What is your deepest aspirations? What are your greatest fears? If you could be a free and happy being, what would that look like for you? Or how long have you uh, been stuck in this job? How old do you think I am? So these are just some different ideas to explore these different parts of yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 15 minutes to try this exercise out. Um, you know, you could do 5 different pens, you could do one color. It's a choose your own adventure. So just invite you to take these next 15 minutes to get in touch with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts of yourself that would really like to be heard and understood. So we will come back in 15 minutes. and then we'll have an opportunity to share uh, and to integrate what has come up for us during this practice today. See you soon. Dear friends, this is a 2-minute time check. So take this time to finish up whatever thoughts you have before we come back together. So thank you, friends. That is the end of our second activity. Um, Maybe at this time we can end the recording, Cody. So we'll have an opportunity to move into the third portion of this evening.